So when we think about this from the application management platform standpoint, we know we have complex applications. We know that they're doing all kinds of things with APIs and parallel environments and making them pervasive and making sure that we have the individual components. And we know that they use open platforms. We know that they use all kinds of things to make things mobile, to support things using good support tools, to understand those things that happen in an open community, and provide applications through stores. But what doesn't happen without an application management platform is the management capabilities, the ability to expose those workflows that you need exposed to the individual users, to have that object orientation, to build, to view, to modify what you need, what the actual automation should look like, that it's customizable to that application, that it is site aware of all of the objects and all of the third-party systems that you need to use, and give you the ability to do a lot of that governance, to understand what happened, to understand what things occurred, to make sure that you know who did what to who, and also make all of this available on a self-service platform so that anybody has the ability to see it if they need to. That's what Control-M workload automation is now. It's not just a workload automation solution anymore. It truly is evolving into an application management platform that anybody can use. It doesn't have to be an operations tool anymore. It now can be this overarching workflow automation tool that anyone can use to properly execute anything in the thought process of automation for a given application. So really, we're trying to make that automation much more simple, to enable collaboration between an application developer and the operations group, to give the application developer the tools to build automation that's easy to deploy, and to give you the ability to maintain control of that workflow so that you can actively work with that workflow, but also tie it to the rest of the business world. That's what Control-M workload automation does all the way across the board. And Matt mentioned earlier that Control-M has been the leader in the Magic Quadrant. We've had the wonderful status of being far in the upper right-hand corner of the quadrant. And that's a wonderful thing. But it's been that way for the last 6 quadrants, which is the last 12 years. So when you think about Control-M, and you think about it as an application management tool, a workflow automation tool, something that is much more expansive than the old-style job scheduling solutions that you may be saddled with today, know that the reason why Control-M has been a leader for the last 12 years is because of this type of evolution, because of these interfaces, because of these tiebacks to these third-party applications that everybody needs management for. So we'll talk a little bit about the product itself, and we'll take a look at it from the standpoint of both the operational way and the application development way. First and foremost, this is Control-M from the operational standpoint. For anybody that has Control-M in-house today at a lower level than version 8, you're going to get a look at version 8 itself. This is version 8 FixPack 7. We have now gone to a thought process of domains. Each one of these domains actually allows you to do specific functions operationally. So in the planning domain, I am creating objects. This is where I have the ability to come out and look at those templates, see what I have the ability to create, and use that object orientation. You'll notice that there are things here for SAP Business Objects and PeopleSoft and Oracle eBusiness and Java and File Watchers. However, there are some here that have been custom created using Application Integrator, like the Windows Service or our WinRMT type of integrations, so that they become objects as well. So when somebody says, I have to get to this application, you don't have an integration to it, but this is what the web service does. This is how I can use the web service to do this. I can give that information in Control-M and create an object much like you see there for WinRMT or Windows_SVC or stock quote. They are then dragged into this middle section, and each of the objects are created. Now, I brought up an application for the sake of brevity, and this application is a big data application. This actually uses the MapR version of Hadoop and does a series of processes to create output data from inputted information from different sources. I have the ability to look at Informatica. This is an Informatica job. If I go ahead and double-click on it, I have the ability to see what workflow I'm running, what repository folder I'm going to execute that workflow from. If I have any instance information I need to provide or any other information like workflow parameters I need to provide, it's a form you fill out. It's not a script you have to think about. It's not something you have to know some kind of individual programming language to understand. And that same object orientation exists for file watching. So my file watchers are the same way. It's a form you fill out. What hosts am I going to look for to do this transfer? What file systems am I going to be going against? Which way am I going? What type of transfer am I doing? Am I doing a straight transfer based on time, or am I doing a file watching transfer where I'm looking on that one host on either side, looking for a file, and when it becomes stable, immediately transfer it? Again, these are things that I don't have to write a script for. And if I wanted to write a script to do a watch and transfer, that would be hundreds of lines of code. Those are hundreds of lines of code I've driven out of the application management process. This is the kind of object orientation that exists for Control-M. Even things like running a MapReduce inside of a big data implementation, in this case, MapR. It's a form you fill out. It's not something I have to put through individual management styles. I don't have to write specific scripts to run them. I just tell it, I'm going to connect to this MapR. I'm going to run this Java MapReduce process. Here's the jar file path. Any main class information arguments I need to pass, any pre or post commands I need to execute based on that, all of those things are forms. All of those things are fields that I fill in, not code I have to write. After this gets run into the system, after it starts going in and executing, I can look at all of those things in that same object-oriented format. So I can actually see their current states. I can see those things that are on hold, those things that have finished, those things that have failed. If I go out and look at one of those failures, I can actually see in its output information on the right-hand side here, for example, what exactly happened to that job. And I can take this information and actually use it as decision-making for whether or not a job passes muster or not. I can attach this information to an email to the application developer when the job fails, to tell them that the job failed and these are the messages that were received. This is the kind of object-oriented system that you have the ability to leverage. This is the kind of thing that people really want in their business to manage their applications. If we think about that dashboarding thought process, here is the service monitor, that dashboard operationally to show me of all of those jobs that I just saw on that previous screen, here's how they're grouped together in the business. Here are the ones that are managed by individual SLAs with that nuclear symbol on the left. I have some that are late. I have some that have a job failure. I have some that are late because of a job failure. And I can see all of those things in a single dashboard without having to deal with the individual jobs themselves. That's the kind of operational model that we're talking about with Control-M when we manage all of this automation. When we think about it from the application developer side, this is where what we call Workload Change Manager interface becomes so important, where we actually have that same capability to go out and create that same workflow, to have specific applications built in a specific way, to give them that same object orientation that we saw operationally on their screens, and take away the objects that they don't need if they're not supposed to have them. I'm signed in as myself. I'm an administrator, so I see everything. But I could sign in as an application developer, and a lot of those things would go away based on whatever rules are built in Control-M for what we call site standards and site customization. The same object orientation is true as well here. So if I were to go double-click on that File, Watch, and Transfer, I would actually see its job definition. And I see the same thing that I see operationally. So, for example, I've clicked on that job. In my summary view, I have the job definition. I can make all the changes I want here. If I change this from SRV8 to SRV9, are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I want to do that. And it will give me the ability to go out and make whatever host changes I wish. I can pick different host capabilities and different individual file systems to work with. So I can go drill into each side and pick whatever file I wish to move and move it to different spots, all as an object-oriented thing. It doesn't require a lick of code at all. That's the biggest thing about all of this. And if I wanted, for example, to save that file in the home directory as dave.txt, I can handwrite that as well. All of those things are available in that mode for the application person to create that kind of work. I also get to see all of the changes that happen. These are the changes that occurred. If there were any things that were in violation of the site standards, I would know about them immediately. If there were any fields that weren't filled in that were mandatory, they would be highlighted in gold. And they would be prompted as to what information needs to be in those fields so that they would be compliant with the site standards. I can submit this set of changes to the scheduler now. I can go ahead and make sure that when that change, or now that when that request is submitted, that it actually now goes to them and it says requester works, or when it gets over there, it'll say scheduler works. And then inside of Control-M, when they go to their planning domain and they don't have anything open, they can look at unassigned work. There's request 20, one of my others. And they can actually bring it up and do the operational types of things that we would normally do to promote this kind of set of changes into production. This object orientation, this power that we have to allow the application developer to utilize the tool the way we want them to, drives cost out of their development cycles. It drives time out of their development cycles, creates better automation for them, and better management styles for both operations and application development. This is the kind of power that Control-M puts in your hands. The beauty of object orientation gives the application developer a tool set that they haven't had to create this kind of application automation. And because Control-M has all of the integration points to many of the common third-party systems that exist, along with running the standard things that you would at the operating system level or on the mainframe in the case of JCL-based jobs, all of those things can be brought to bear now in an enterprise-wide way to give the application developer all that they need to create the automation in the most efficient fashion possible. That's what we do. That's what Control-M is. That's the reason why Control-M is a leader in the space for the last 12 years.